Here it is, guys. We're in Dewars.
Let's not lie about it.
Yeah, I know. We did go to Dewars with the intention of doing the intro to this Bakersfield road trip while clanking ice cream dishes together. But instead we ate ice cream and forgot to do it.
We literally had a conversation and then totally forgot to do it. But we do have some pictures, though, right?
Yeah, we got pictures of us enjoying the ice cream and not doing the show, which was the only reason to get ice cream. But there's no excuse. There's no reason to have to go to Dewars. You just go.
That's true. That's true.
And that's what Huell did on this episode. He just came.
And he saw
everything. Everything Bakersfield had to offer. But let's just get right to it, yeah?
Yeah. Let's get this show on the road.
The road trip.
Ooh.
Huell hit it.
I love driving north from L.A. on the 5 freeway, going high up and over the mountains on the Grapevine. And then all of a sudden you head downhill and pop out of the mountains into country that's flat as a pancake. You're in Kern County, oil and agricultural country, and you're entering an area rich in history and full of good people. We were full of excitement because we were heading to good old Bakersfield on a road trip.
So did you notice one of the first phrases that Huell used when he got to the bottom of the Grapevine?
Which one?
That he got into some land that's as flat as a pancake?
I mean, he ain't lying. It is a drastic change from the Grapevine to the valley floor.
No, for sure.
But if the second word out of his mouth is love. He loves driving north out of L.A.
And he also mentions that this area is full of good people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because when Kathleen was watching this, as you know, she moved from down south, she shook her head up and down. Mm-hmm.
She felt it?
She said, good peeps.
Yep.
Well, she didn't say that. That's paraphrasing. She said, good people.
Yeah. Well, Huell seemed to really like coming here. I think from what he says in a couple segments to go from now, I think he came here like recreationally.
I think so too. Well, we know that he at least came to one place recreationally.
Yeah. Before we get to that, let's talk about this first place we're at, because we're not actually in Bakersfield yet.
No, we're close to Buttonwillow.
Yeah, we're...
or maybe it is in Buttonwillow.
According to the Tule Elk State Reserve website, it is south of Buttonwillow.
Mm.
Now, have you been here to the Tule Elk State Reserve?
I'd be lying if I said I have.
I haven't been to the actual spot where Huell went there, but I've been kind of through it, or like around it, because there's not really roads through it, but right at the bottom of where it kind of ends is a little really kind of odd town called Tupman. And
like Harriet?
Yeah, but I don't think it's named after her. But right off on the opposite side of Taft Highway from Tupman is the spot where, if you're a local, you know that's where you go fishing on the California Aqueduct.
Oh, you said Tupman, not Tubman.
Yeah, Tupman.
Okay, we're good to go. I got that out.
You know where I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, no,
right?
I do. Because you make a right, you hang a left, and you hit the chevron. You make a right, you go out to the Tule Elk Reserve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, this place looks kind of interesting. They don't really show everything that this place has to offer, because there's the visitor center / gift shop / kind of museum place, which there's more than just, go stand on this platform, which is what Huell does. Because he's meeting up with Ranger Bill Moffett, and there's a platform right off of a parking lot that just gets you up above the grass line. And there's like one of those little telescope things that would be like at a beach pier and you put a quarter in and it lets you see out of a scratched lens for 45 seconds. There's one of those looking out over the prairie land there. But there's a whole gift shop. There's guided tours. There's like auto tours. You can go driving around with the rangers and they show you the elk up close and stuff.
That's fun.
There's a lot more than what Huell kind of gave it, which is rare. Usually he's showing you like even more than what
Yeah, but I noticed this in other segments. He crams a lot into this trip.
This is a jam-packed one.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we should put it in a historical perspective because in our timeline of California's Gold, we're in 1992. This episode aired in 2002, so this is 10 years later. Mm-hmm. Huell has already come to Bakersfield, I think, 2 other times doing shows for California's Gold, and I think that's it. Just some California's Gold stuff. But he seems like he's sitting tall in his celebrity during this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few times when he walks into a room.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone looks at him. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So there's no one here with Huell except for Bill and a couple bucks. Maybe some does, but it was interesting. Bill was talking about the life story of the Thule elk and how they were hunted down during the Spanish period.
The number that he throws out,
500,000 down to one pair.
One pair.
Now he should have specified more. I can tell what he meant because that was one pair in this area. Because Thule elk range all throughout California. They're even called different things in different areas, which he kind of goes over. But
well, even to that point, to $500,000 to one pair.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, don't kill those two.
Yeah.
We're going to need them.
It's a good thing it was a boy and girl. But reading up on the Thule elk, I guess they really were very close to extinction. And there's still only like a few, like less than 10,000 in the wild, which I guess isn't like full-on endangered status these days, but it's a lot less than 500,000.
And old Bill gives us the reason why they're called Thule elk.
Yeah.
I never knew this. They used to be called dwarf and or California elk, but the last bit of them to be found were in Thule.
Yep. So I guess that's just the last name they've had.
Yeah.
It's funny that they're called dwarf elk because they are really big, but they're nowhere near as big as like the elk that are up in Oregon and Washington. I went to some weird zoo up there, and like I forget the elk species that are up there, but those things.
It was cryptozoology?
No, that was in Maine. Not even close. I wasn't Bigfoot hunting in Oregon.
Oh.
But either way, this is a pretty short thing. Seems like Huell kind of just wanted to get out, do it because he heard it was cool and needed to just get it done. But I've heard that this is a great like kind of place to take your kids. Probably not in the summer, even though it says that the elk are most active during late summer, early fall. Which, as you know, in Bakersfield, it's blazing.
It's a scorcher.
Even though we don't have the Bakersfield Blaze anymore. R.I.P. It's okay. But either way, we're heading into town, right?
Yeah. We're heading to the corner of 18th and F Street.
Yeah. And because this is road trip, there's not a lot of like expository things, so I'm going to give you a little clip, but it's not going to be our normal kind of clip sound. It's a quick one. We'll be right back. But Huell, tell us where we're at.
Well, we have made it to Bakersfield. We are in downtown Bakersfield on the corner of 18th and F Streets. There's the world-famous Padre Hotel off in the distance back there. Lots of very colorful stories about the Padre Hotel. And here to greet us, standing right out here on the corner, Mary.
Hi.
This is a very interesting part of town. I had never noticed this big building.
Before we get to the Guild House,
Yeah.
we need to talk about the giant building behind him and the building that he mentions.
Yeah, he mentions it real quick, and there's a lot more to this building than just, the world famous Padre Hotel. This is a wild joint right here.
Well, and he mentions that he's heard interesting stories about this place.
Oh yeah.
So we gotta talk about the Padre for a bit.
For sure. Which, before we get there, we should just say that this is also like, this place has got some personal history with us because we've both stayed there, not together, but with our significant others numerous times.
My graduation.
Yes.
We did a graduation night there.
Mm-hmm.
Stayed there multiple times just to get away for a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when you lived out of town for a couple years, you'd stay here sometimes.
Oh, yeah. That was our favorite.
Yeah. Aaron and I tried to stay here on our wedding night, but our good friends Stephen and Megan snagged the last room to have for because their anniversary is like right around.
I remember that, yeah.
So we ended up at, I think, the Four Seasons or something.
The best Western.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of people kind of stay here even in town because it's one of the coolest places in town.
Yeah, and for anyone that doesn't know, it's just it's a hotel that was built in 1928.
Mm-hmm.
Has fun Spanish Revival architecture, and it was revamped in around 2010 is when it opened.
Uh-huh.
And now it's just it's a fancy hotel now.
And
very swanky.
There's restaurants, like 3 different restaurants in it. Because prior, the bottom floor was just like retail. It was all retail.
Mm-hmm.
And it was less than savory at times. But
well, and all of the rooms, because you can eat at the Belvedere, which is the most fancy.
Yeah.
Then you can eat at the pharmacy, which is you walk up and order whatever you want, and then you can eat at Tombstone.
Yeah. Or the Prairie Fire room thing too.
Oh, on the
upstairs?
second floor.
Yeah,
that's right. Those are all named after. I mean, we didn't know this. I mean, we didn't know this specifically.
Yeah.
But we knew they were named after something. But then we started kind of digging into the history.
Yeah.
And the second owner, Milton, I guess is a nickname, Spartacus Miller. So he bought the hotel in 1954.
Mm-hmm.
And he got some bad news in about 1959, didn't he?
Yeah, he was in violation of state fire codes, which, not his fault, I guess. Who knows? Maybe the codes changed. But he was not thrilled with that.
No.
To say the least.
He did things to torment the city, the city council and members. Well, just basically city council. He's let chickens out in meetings. He baked them Tombstone cookies.
Yeah.
He put the words Alamo and Tombstone above the hotel in protest. I mean, now it's comical. I'm sure that drove people crazy then.
Yeah.
But he also, the craziest thing he did, he built a fake missile, put it on the roof, and aimed it at City Hall.
Yeah. And that was still up there up until like this major remodel.
Yeah, which is kind of cool because we'll be going to the Kern County Museum, and last I heard, they have the missile.
That's what I heard too.
That they're restoring, and we'll put it on display, so that'll be fun to see.
So, one little tidbit about the restaurants, because this is one of the cool things about Bakersfield that a lot of people don't see.
Before you get there,
okay,
it was turkeys, not chickens, but still, principle.
Yeah, a fowl of some
fowl.
sort. The fowl ran afoul. Bakersfield is kind of becoming one of these places that's very embracing of alternate dietary lifestyles.
Okay.
And I got to tell you that the restaurants in there, except for what's the fancier one?
Belvedere.
Yeah, the other ones are very vegan friendly because my friends were all vegan at the time that I lived with a couple friends, and we would go there, and the chef, we would just say, hey, make us something vegan. And he would be like, got you covered. And just make these one-off dishes. And it was always great. So,
Well, that's cool.
Any traveling vegans out there, we got you covered. Not only here, we got, what do we got? Hen's Roost, shaken buns, all kinds of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's Brimstone. That's the one it's called. Yeah. Allan just looked it up.
So I was wrong. It wasn't Tombstone. It's Brimstone.
Brimstone.
Hey, come on. Stone. Either way.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's all good. Either way, that's not even what Huell's about. He just literally mentions this. It's 5 seconds into the show, and we're already this sidetracked. But
I know, right?
Okay, so he talks about why he's really here, the Guild House, in good detail, and that's why we wanted to give the extra bit about the Padre, because he doesn't go there yet. It's not really like a destination place in 2002.
No,
not at all. Like, it was cool to see that it was still there. It hadn't been like torn down, but
it was something. It wasn't in the midst of being converted into condos, and then it was a complicated
the whole little thing.
Yeah,
but the Guild House, that's where Huell really is starting this episode off, and this is an interesting place because it's right across the street from some pretty popular apartments in town that Huell mentions. Well, Mary, the waitress who he talks to, mentions the New Yorker. Did you know about this Tom Hanks movie that was filmed there?
I didn't, and I was looking it up, and I couldn't find it. Did you find something?
Nothing. Okay, Mary. I mean, this was early 2000s. Maybe there wasn't as much like internet gossip websites to talk about this stuff.
I think I was looking. Castaway came out in 2003, and he mentions Bakersfield, but that's the only thing I can.
Because what was it?
Was it a porta potty or something?
Yeah, the porta potty that comes up, but like, it wasn't from the New Yorker.
Maybe.
Whatever, Mary. But either way, one thing it's hard to hear because she says it really quick is the Guild House is a charitable restaurant of sorts. It's all volunteer, and all of the proceeds go towards the Henrietta Huell Child Guidance Clinic. Now, Mary says that in a different rhythm. She calls it the Henrietta Huell Child Guidance Clinic. And I got to tell you, I knew who the Huells were, but I didn't hear Huell in the name. I heard Wild Child.
Oh man, that's funny.
But it's a good good charity, good work, good deal. But we're inside the restaurant now. We're with Huell, we're with Mary,
and this is his demographic.
Yes, for sure.
Just anyone you have to watch the video. This is definitely Huell's demographic.
In fact, okay. So the first woman you really get to see kind of react, because they don't spend much time in the dining room. They're just going right towards the kitchen. But there's a woman sitting there, a blonde woman, who is just kind of not paying much attention. But then she looks up and she sees this ordeal going on, and you can see it on her face where she's like,
"Is that Huell?
Is it
Burnley Hauser?"
And then you could tell there's this moment right as she's about to go out of frame when she whips her head over to tell her friend, "It is Huell."
Oh, man.
But then the pink lady,
she is not comfortable.
Not into it.
So,
I don't want to be on camera. But anyway, we go back to the kitchen, and it seems like a fun place to work or volunteer. It seems like the same ladies who patronize the place also work there.
Right.
It's a lot of maybe retirees who have extra time.
They start at 7 in the morning, and they work till 3:30. I don't know anyone who could volunteer. Maybe teachers in the summer.
True. Yeah.
Because Kathleen looked into it, volunteering here. And
they said something, right?
Yeah, one of the ladies looked over, and she thought she was whispering, but she said, "Get her, she's young."
Did she ever end up volunteering there?
No, she didn't. Well, you figure out the hours. I got to work a job.
Yeah. So they're kind of just showing the food and everyone's just kind of giggling about how much fun they have. And Huell points out this salad, and it's called the Beautiful, Bountiful Bakersfield Salad. And I really like that. It does look good. It's got mandarins and raisins and all this stuff on it.
It looks good. My attention was captured by the lady. She's the yeast roll lady.
Oh, I know. I know where you're going.
Did you notice how many times she clinked the tongs on the counter?
And Okay, so she opens this drawer full of rolls, and someone says, "Here, try one." And she grabs this roll, and Huell obviously has got his head turned the other way as he's talking to someone, and it's just her in frame, holding this roll with tongs so impatiently. Oh, man. And then
she does a little tippity tap. Yeah. I don't know why that's so funny to me.
It's good. The whole interaction with her. And if you notice, he just set it down on the counter. But then they cut and he's eating. Mouthful, doing interviews. But then that's it. But quick, before we go to the next part, there is like this sweeping shot of the inside of the dining room as they show the address and phone number of the guild house. And if you look right at the beginning of it, Huell is sitting and eating, like as a patron there with two other people. Now, who are they? And why are they getting to eat with him?
That's a good question.
Now, this is 2002. I was 17 years old. Not to age myself, but who cares? I was here. I was in Bakersfield this day, I'm sure.
Were you in the guild house that day?
Well, I've never been in the guild house ever, so no. Have you been in there?
No.
Okay. So yeah, no.
We've been in the New Yorkers.
Yes, we both have separately.
I'm going to call it the New Yorkers. It's the New Yorker.
Yeah, no.
Always called it the New Yorkers. Doesn't.
Were we both at Alex's apartment at the same time one time?
Yeah.
Like a long time ago when Louis lived in the closet?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we played some video games, Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Melee, I forget. Had to be Melee. It's the only one that was, in our minds, worth playing on GameCube.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, also, Mike lived there.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
You almost did, but whatever.
I did. It's true. You've heard of the next place, right?
I think so. I think this is where I had my junior high graduation. This is the good old Bakersfield Fox Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we really get a chance to see how Huell pronounces our great town. The name of it.
To me, I love it.
Oh, yeah. Because it's not like he's the only one who does this by any means.
He leaves off, well, let's just spell it. Bakersfeel.
Bakersfield. Every time, once you really hear him say it the first time, you realize he's saying it every time.
I love it.
Anyway.
Bakersfield. Well, have you been to... Did you ever go to Flicks?
Many times, yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of these cool, unknown things that's been happening for... How long has it been going on?
Over 20 years. A long time.
Look it up. Hold on.
This is amazing.
Boy, I was off by a decade and a half.
Yeah.
Or more. It's 36 years, so it'll be going on its 37th season.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy
the
guy who was putting it on originally, though, I know that he moved this last year to Albuquerque.
But it's still going on.
Yeah, it's still going on.
That's the plan anyway.
Yeah.
But Huell doesn't even go in the Fox Theater because I guess he's got other fish to fry.
Maybe he was waiting for Chris D'Elia.
As we are?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the things we've seen in the Fox Theater. Because it is a menagerie of things.
Oh, boy.
Not just Flicks movies. So Flicks. We forgot to say what that is. It's the foreign language International Cinema Society, I think is what it is. It's a foreign film club of sorts that plays foreign language films that have come out the year prior, and it's open to the public. It's not like a private club. You can buy memberships and then you get to go to all the movies, or you can just buy a single ticket if you only like one or two of the movies. Mm-hmm. It's cool.
I mean, I've primarily been to Flicks events.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are comedians that go there fairly often, which I think you have seen quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Let's. Junior high graduation was the first time I was in there. That was really funny. My only memory of that day was there was a home video, which we've since lost, of I think my mom yelling my name out as we're walking down the aisle, and I look over and, oh, hey, and I just knock into the girl in front of me because the line had stopped. I saw Lewis Black there. I saw Aziz Ansari there.
Did you go to Kevin Hart?
No, I didn't.
That was the only one I thought about going to.
There's other stuff, man. I don't remember.
Well, they were doing a bit more when we moved away, I felt like. There's some good shows that came through.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some family lore.
Really?
Yeah.
Have I heard of this before?
Oh, my mom's sister's husband.
Okay.
I think you have.
Hit it.
I was always told that a lot of the wood carvings at the top of the Fox Theater were done by my uncle, by marriage, which he was a master machinist and woodworker in town, which I wouldn't doubt. I mean, it could be totally wrong, but I believe it because he was so talented.
I'm going to just choose to believe it, too.
Butch Farrell.
All right. Is he still around?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
He passed a bit ago. I think I was like 9 when he passed.
Okay, so 35 years ago? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, man.
But did you notice Huell was talking about this walking tour? This brochure.
Uh-huh.
Which we were able to locate it. Mm-hmm. And also, there's an app where you can find this. It's a little cumbersome to use.
Yeah.
But it's still cool that someone put this together. Or I guess the group put it together. I think we should do one.
We've been talking about this a while because there our local historical society, which we're members of, does these walking tours, but only once a year. And I think people would benefit a lot from getting to learn the history of downtown Bakersfield because there is some wild stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That happened and continues to happen. And I think some sort of, app-driven, self-guided walking tour should exist, and maybe
or just call us.
Yeah, anytime. Or maybe not call, but
we'll
just
talk
email
you
us.
No, call us. We'll talk you through it.
Just
we'll actually Skype us. Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
We'll walk you through it, yeah.
But we're only at the Fox Theater for a quick sec, and then we're heading over to the crown jewel of...
the motherland in the motherland.
Sure thing. Huell, where are we going?
Well, as our road trip continues, we've now come just about a mile from downtown Bakersfield. This is Chester Avenue out here. We've hooked up with Jeff Nickel. We're at the Kern County Museum. There is a lot to see here, Jeff, and we're starting with what has to be one of the real landmarks in Bakersfield.
Yeah, not only a landmark for Bakersfield, but of Kern County. This is the Beale Memorial Clock Tower, and it was built in honor of Mary Edwards Beale by her children, and it's set right in the center of Chester Avenue and 17th Street.
Now, how did it get from there to here?
Well, because of the 1952 earthquake, it was damaged to the point where the city fathers didn't feel it was safe in the middle of the street anymore, and so it was taken down. And it was rebuilt here right in front of the Kern County Museum in the late 1960s.
We're here, man.
So, the Kern County Museum. I never once called it Kern County Museum as a kid.
Never once.
There was another term for this place.
Which it's alluded to.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Huell he starts out outside of the museum. He gets the history lesson about the Beale Clock Tower, which quickly... Beale Clock Tower is a large clock tower that used to sit in the middle of Chester and 18th Street downtown. And the earthquake in the 50s knocked that sucker right down to the ground. And it got moved over to the museum. And I didn't know that the Beale Clock Tower wasn't named after Edward Fitzgerald Beale, nor his son Truxton Beale. But
who is it?
The wife and mother of said people, Mary Beale.
Ah.
The kids named it after her. So that whole family was just naming everything after each other in this town. There's so much Beale stuff. But after we get inside, Jeff Nickel, who's our guest host person, he calls it a village. And that's it. That's all he says.
Which I was surprised. I was waiting for it.
Yeah, because it's the Pioneer Village.
I still refer to it as that to people.
Yeah.
You know, it's Pioneer Village. That's where we go. Yeah.
Now, it doesn't really say that much on the website, on the Kern County Museum website. So maybe they are trying to scrub away that name or something. But it's always going to be Pioneer Village to me, because I went to, and you too, we talked about this, many field trips there.
Mm-hmm. As adults, we try to go to the lectures as well.
Yes.
Which we went to one that was on the 1952 earthquake that shook down the clock tower.
Exactly, yeah.
That was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. In fact, the person in charge of those talks, Lori Ware, who's the curator of the museum now, took the position, I don't know the timeline, of Jeff, who is, I think he was the curator during this time. Mm-hmm. Jeff has also written books about Bakersfield. He's a local boy. But now it's Lori. She does these really cool talks and puts on a lot of cool events.
She just got an award recently, right?
What was that?
From the Conference of California Historical Societies. She got an Individual Merit Award. She was honored in Roseville this last year.
Really?
Yep.
Look at Lori.
So definitely worth checking out.
Yeah. But back in 2002, it was all about Jeff and all about Pioneer Village. And like I said, the Beale Clock Tower. But there's a little tidbit. There's not a lot of major interactions in this first half of the episode. And there's one quick thing. So as Huell and Jeff are making their way from the front to the back, because the front is where the museum building itself is, which there's the oil exhibit and all this cool stuff in there. There's a field trip of kids filing out. And there's a kid who stops, dead in his tracks, holding his big old sweatshirt in his hand. And he just kind of is looking. And then there's these two kids holding a big box come up from behind, bump into him. And then the next kid kind of is mad about it and just scruffs that kid who's standing still and yanks him to keep going.
What? Oh.
I didn't notice it until the fifth time I watched it, but
that was a good grab too.
Yeah. And the kid kind of just goes with it. He's like, "Oh, was I standing still again? Sorry." And in they go into Pioneer Village, and the first thing we see is probably the crown jewel of the whole place, wouldn't you say?
So the crown jewel in the crown jewel?
Yeah. The Huell House.
Yep.
It's what did he call it? A Queen Anne Victorian mansion. It's a pretty cool thing, and totes haunted, according to childhood me. Me and my friends on these field trips would be so scared to go in there.
Really?
You didn't?
Well, no. The only time we came, well, not only time, we came here quite a bit on field trips, but as a family. Mm-hmm. Did you ever go to Safe Halloween?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah. Did you think it was haunted during Safe Halloween or just in general?
Before, during, and after. From the first time I went there, I think in first grade, that was the thing. Is oh, don't go in the big greenhouse in the front. That's haunted. Before we even got there.
Someone told that to you.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense.
And then it just always was that.
Do you remember the episode when we were eating sourdough bread?
Yeah.
From Pyrenees? Mm-hmm. Did you notice that?
That was episode 3?
Yeah.
LA to San Francisco?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Did you notice that the building that they're in front of, it's decorated in a different decoration?
It's one of the few things that the museum does that I'm not hot on, but keep going.
They dressed it up, but that's originally Pyrenees Bakery.
Yep. But as Jeff says, it's currently being used as like or made to look like something. I forget what he says.
Yeah, I forgot what it was exactly.
But that's the thing. Like, they have these historic buildings, but then they'll make it up to be, oh, this was the first police station, but right now it's where you get a haircut. Like, why? Just make it be the thing. But I think a lot of that has been kind of reversed over time, I've noticed. But Huell seems really kind of interested in this whole concept.
Yeah.
And Jeff even mentions that this is the only museum on the West Coast that does this kind of thing, where they relocate historic buildings to a centralized location. And I guess we're lucky that this happened, because we had this big old plot of land that was built, or I think it was bought by the Lions Club, and it was our old fairgrounds. Like, our original fairgrounds in Kern County was here off Chester Avenue. Now it's over on P and Chester still.
Union,
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Between P, Union, Chester, and what is the other street? Ming.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool that this happens. There's even more going on at it now. There's the Neon Graveyard.
The Neon Graveyard,
Yeah.
I was going to mention that.
And
Well, did you?
you going to talk about the custodian?
Just what Jeff says about her.
Okay, yeah. I have it written right here. Say
Okay.
it.
Okay. To keep this place clean, you got to be the queen.
And that's so quick, because Huell mentions the queen thing like a second before him. Like, Huell sees one of the custodians just kind of doing her thing, going around, because the museum seems really quiet. Because a lot of times this place isn't hustling and bustling on any given day. There's like big groups that come and then go. Usually like the field trips like we went on. And the custodian is just getting interviewed. She's smiling and everything. And Huell just says like, oh, you're the queen of this place. And then Jeff said that. To keep it clean, you got to be the queen. Good one, Jeff.
Keeps moving on.
Yep.
And I guess we could move on to the next segment.
Well, before, there's one
there's
other
something
thing.
else? Okay.
Yeah. So Huell, he really likes the concept of the place, but he kind of twists it up a bit at the end when he says, if in your town you got old buildings or anything in your backyard, bring them on down to Bakersfield. It's like, no, dude, it's just stuff for us. Like, we don't want some Merced building, or I don't know. But during that, Huell is saying that, and he's whap, 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 slapping Jeff on the back, like in a nice way, like he's meaning to just be like, "Oh man, you're my buddy," and you can just see Jeff's face just go, gritting.
Yeah, those are good ones.
We're watching it again right now. Okay, so that is the end. We're moving on to a pretty fun segment, don't you think?
Oh yeah.
Huell, tell us where we're going.
Well, we worked up quite an appetite walking around the Kern County Museum, looking at all those buildings. So now, as the sun sets, it's time for us to go to dinner. Now, when you think about dinner in Bakersfield, you got to think about Basque restaurants. And when you think about Basque restaurants, one of the best around is right here, the Woolgrowers restaurant. We are getting ready for a Bakersfield treat.
All right. We are at the Woolgrowers restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. But.
And I always spelled it, or at least thought of it as Woolgrowers, like a contraction.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really looked at the sign that closely until Huell is standing out front of it. It is Wool Space Growers.
Yeah.
Not that matters, but those little details that you never even pay attention to, even though I've driven past this building 600,000 times in my life.
It just comes out Woolgrowers.
Woolgrowers. So, before we go inside, let's talk about the Basque history of Bakersfield. Because they go way back, right?
Super far back.
Like, before Kern was a county, Or Bakersfield was a town.
Well, just after. Could have
No.
could have been disincorporated at that point.
Well, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
'Cause yeah.
But when was the first ones as far as the Basque themselves are concerned?
Well, so I don't know if this is the first, but it's a very early. Mm-hmm. It's one of the Ansalabahares.
Yeah. Which is still a name you hear around town all the time. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, like that was 1881.
Yeah.
So it was quite a while ago.
Mm-hmm. And Basques, if you're not familiar with this kind of cultural grouping of people, they're from the Pyrenees Mountains that border France and Spain, and they're kind of like an in-betweener culture. They're kind of pulling from French and Spanish and also influencing both French and Spanish cultures with their own kind of flavor of things. And because they were known as sheep herders, and there was a lot of sheep herding going on in California at the time, they emigrated to our area. And there's a lot of specific stories of Basque sheep herders in the area, famous ones and everything. But
most of the Basque and French settled. Well, it actually wasn't. If we go back
you
quite
tell
a
the
bit.
Sumner story?
Okay, yeah, we might as well go back a little bit. So where Huell wasn't originally Bakersfield.
Yeah.
It was actually a city called Sumner, where the Southern Pacific established one of their stations. It's a whole controversy. They wanted to run through Bakersfield. They wanted an easement on both sides. It was too much land. Old T-Bake said no. And
all they wanted was 2 blocks on either side.
in the middle of downtown.
And they said, how about one? They said, see you later.
Yeah, so they established their own city. So if you look at the street grid from
Like a top
Google,
view.
like Google Maps or
Any
Google
map,
Earth or
yeah.
whatever, you'll notice that it's a bit askew.
Yeah.
And that is actually the city of Sumner, where Huell is at this point.
Yeah.
And that was...
Or like it's kind of like the gray area between. Like
Yeah.
downtown was still to the west. This was like kind of to the east, because like the original Woolgrowers restaurant wasn't in its current location. It was further over east.
Right. So
Over on Baker, I think, or something.
this ended up being the spot where the Basque and French ended up settling. And this was Sumner, established in 1874. It was officially named Kern in 1893.
Yep.
And then once Bakersfield took off, an economic boom with oil and whatnot, it was consolidated into Greater Bakersfield.
By vote. Let's throw that.
Yeah.
They
by vote
decided to do that.
in 1909.
We weren't imperialists.
But definitely, if you head this way, if you follow the signs, it'll say Old Town Kern.
Yep.
And that's the reason it says Old Town Kern, because Kern was the name of the city.
And that area where the original railroad line ran was called Basque Block. And there's a number of Basque establishments that were there and are still there. There's another quite famous Basque restaurant down on that side of town called Noriega. And Huell will be going there and having a good old time. He does like almost a whole episode on that place. Years down the line for California's Gold. We'll be going there.
So a preview, the way it's different is it's not so much order off the menu kind of a restaurant as it is you eat at a particular time, the door opens, and you sit family style.
Long cafeteria-like tables, and you're just sitting with strangers, hobnobbing, princes and paupers, as they say.
But so when Huell talks about Spanish Basques and French Basques, he's not talking about the French and Basque in Sumner creating kids that are French Basque.
Okay. Oh, man.
Oh, man. It's
Either
literally
way.
on either side of the
Yeah, I
mountains,
know.
right? The Pyrenees Mountains.
So let's get inside this restaurant, because this is where the real juice happens, and I'm not talking about the broth from the cabbage soup, but Either way, first thing we see is the family that's owned the place since the beginning and still does. And we get to meet the mother, the daughter, which you can't really hear their names very well, but it's all this big, huge family that owns the place, and Huell's kind of getting a little tour and right back to the kitchen. And the first thing Huell asks is, "You bass stick together, don't you?" And the lady says, "Of course. That's why none of us are on welfare." And she kind of throws that out, and Huell's just like, "Okay." And then she stops, and she's like, No, that's a thing. The bass, they don't get on welfare or food stamps, nothing." And Huell's just, okay. I just want to talk about the chicken.
But there's a bit of this where she mentions that she's French Basque.
Yeah.
And then the guy is Spanish Basque.
The next guy they meet, yeah.
Yeah, so he's Spanish Basque, French Basque. I always thought or heard that there was a tension between the two regions.
I
where,
heard
like,
that
you
too.
never refer to me as French Basque when I'm Spanish, whatever. I don't know how true that is.
But then even in the Noriega episode, there's that kind of camaraderie amongst that. I always
you
heard
would think,
that
like,
too.
if you go to Benji's, which is French Basque, and you say you're
Another
Spanish,
Basque.
like, would they really...
They're going to kick you out.
Or Chalet Basque. No, but the funniest part of this, what I wanted to get to, did you notice the guy who is, he's working in the back over here, and she says...
Yeah. I got it written right there.
"Oh, he's Mexican Basque."
And the guy just like, yeah.
Oh, man.
But then after a couple other like employees, we meet the son, Danny.
Which he has a line. Did you get it?
I got a couple things written.
Okay.
So he seems kind of timid. Did you get that?
I did, yeah.
And I think Huell kind of got it too, and because he asks if she's a tough overseer, and without missing a beat, yeah. And then you hear the daughter laughing off camera, and Huell does too, and pulls her in, like, "Oh, what are you laughing about?" And she's like, yeah, I think you could tell she is." And the mom is just laughing, just loving being such a tough overseer. But then, is this the line that you were talking about?
No.
Okay, so Danny mentions after the tough overseer part, he says, "Yeah, I mean, she's been on Social Security for a while," kind of insinuating that she retired but doesn't ever leave. She's just still there.
And she doesn't accept, like, aid when she takes Social Security?
That too. Like, that's another thing I was thinking. Like, you got one of the most prominent restaurants in town. I know you paid into Social Security, but do you need to take it? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, he says something where Huell mentions, "Man, a lot of you along the lines of, there's a big family here, or a lot of you in the family work here." And the son says, "Yeah, no one else would hire us."
Oh, I missed that. Oh, Danny.
Oh, we're killing it.
But then after the kitchen...
Well, there's a brief bit. Just we'll mention this. It's along the lines of Mexican Basque. When he talks to the lady, he says, "Are you Basque?" And she says, "No, I'm Portuguese from San Leandro."
Yeah, what?
Okay, that's it.
But then we head out of the kitchen, and then we're in the bar, right? That's where we go next?
Yeah.
And this is, when you enter Woolgrowers, this is kind of like the entryway. You go into this bar area, and there's a lot of times people, like grown-ups, which, I mean, we're grown-ups too, but they seem like more grown-ups to us.
Our elders, yeah, for sure.
Our parents' age, let's just say that.
That's a good one. Good way to
Who
put it.
are plastered? Is that a nice way to say it?
Obliterated?
There's always a lot of drunk people hanging around the bar, surprise, surprise, amongst like other people just waiting for their tables. And there's a couple bits here that is a very good testament to that. First is there's the group of ladies who we're going to meet again. Mm-hmm. And they're just all screaming stuff out at Huell. Like, "Oh, we're from here and we're from there and we always come back to town and blah, blah, blah. And then Huell kind of senses the inebriation in the air. He's like, oh, looks like you guys are having a couple of cocktails, some wine. And they all scream, no, pecan punch. And Huell's like, oh, well, what's that? And then he learns. But that's not even the weirdest one, I thought.
No.
Well, that comes later. I guess we got to get to... Are we getting to Pat?
Let's get to Pat.
Okay. So, this is kind of personal bit of connection here. So, the next lady we have here is a long-term waitress at Woolgrowers. And Huell, right off the bat, he says, I met her, and the first thing I asked is, are you Basque? And Pat says, no, I'm just a little Okie girl from Bakersfield. And laughing and laughing. And right off the bat, as soon as I see her, I know this lady. I know her pretty well. At least I did. So, when I was in high school, so the latter days of high school, in fact, this exact period of time, 2002-ish, I had this girlfriend whose family owned a separate restaurant in town. And Pat, this waitress, worked at Woolgrowers and that restaurant.
Oh, she was moonlighting?
Yes.
Dude.
And she was the waitress who would always wait on us when we would go in the restaurant. And so, 60 different times she was the waitress at this restaurant. And she is exactly the same as you see her in this segment, as she's like explaining the food and kind of giggling and like huge teethy smile in real life.
Out of all the times that you've met her, has she ever had a bad day?
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't? Especially when you're a waitress. Because, sometimes other customers are less than nice.
Mm-hmm.
And there were just times when someone would kind of like give her some grief. And she would do this big smile, but there would just be some anger behind it. But in this segment, maybe Pat still works there. I really want to find out what happened to her because I haven't seen her since like this time. But I don't know how I would. I guess I got to go into Woolgrowers.
We can ask around.
She's giving like the lowdown on all the things that Woolgrowers offers and explain how a Basque restaurant system works. At least most of them.
Well, you get the setup, which is a multi-course meal. You'll pay. You don't. The price doesn't matter. That's how you.
It's like 20 and under.
Yeah, 10 to 12 for the setup, and then you order off the menu at Woolgrower. Okay. You get the setup. It's a multi-course meal, and then you can order off the menu on top of that if you want to. But for me, it is so much food.
Yeah.
That really, unless you want to taste something different, you just share something with someone off the menu.
So the setup, that's what she's kind of showing you to start off with. And to start, you have the cabbage soup, which is kind of like a tomato-based, brothy cabbage and herb soup that you then add beans and salsa to.
Super good.
Yes. That's like my favorite of all the things. Mm-hmm. Then you have normally, which it's funny that they don't have it on here, but there's the pasta.
Hey, we got French fries before too.
The fries.
Oh, sorry, the fries come later. Yeah.
Yeah, there's French fries, like a meat sauce pasta. There's cheeses, salads, like a tomato salad, a Caesar salad.
And what's the highlight?
Well, according to who? According to you or according? You. I don't actually like this. I gotta admit.
Okay. Well, I don't think anyone who hears this at first is going to like it either.
True. Unless you're from here and you've had this, and it's one of those things that it's like an acquired taste. It's pickled beef tongue. And now let me say that I do like lengua tacos. So I like tongue as a food. I haven't had it in years because I don't eat meat anymore, but the pickledness of it,
not a fan?
Not personally.
I don't really like pickled things either. But
I only like
to me, this
pickles.
Is
that's it.
Well, I mean, it's hard to explain unless you taste it.
Mm-hmm.
But the texture is really—it's like thinly sliced, like if you're eating deli meats. But it's so thinly, well, not that thin.
And it's
but
cold, right?
Yeah, it's cold.
Yeah.
And some people put it on sandwiches. They like that better to take away this pickledness.
Did you think that Huell liked it?
His face is the most disgusted. No, it's the most. He just didn't believe it, right?
No.
Yeah.
Because Pat says people from all over, Arizona, Scotland. I like that she goes from one state away, a continent away, everywhere. And I don't think it was Louis at this time. I think it was Cameron who was with him. Pans up to Huell, and he's just got this, yeah, right, Pat, kind of a face. And you can tell, well, I mean, remember and Reedley with the raw meatballs?
Yes.
He's not into this, like, alternate kind of food, or at least meat dishes.
No, because he starts salivating when the waitress shows him the steak with the garlic and the
pork chops.
Pork chops with the garlic, and then chicken with garlic. He has the same response to both of those.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Which those are my favorite things at Woolgrowers.
The garlic, we bonded over this.
Yeah.
The garlic chicken.
Anyway, the other favorite thing, which, you know, for being put on the spot, Pat is killing it.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like she didn't work here for 22 years at this point, I think she said.
But,
she knows the dishes until it seems to get to the desserts. Now, I really like this lady. She's the nicest lady, but I can't not say it. I gotta say it, Pat.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
The flan, which she describes as caramel. She obviously doesn't know exactly what it is, so she just hopes that Huell doesn't notice. It's so funny. Oh, man. But Huell doesn't call her out on it. He just he rolls with the punches. She says that there's rum in it. He's like, oh, yeah. Flying on past.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of wrapping it up with the food segment. They then show a little bit of like, oh, this is the family standing in front of the food.
Which Huell refers to them as the brood.
Did he?
Yeah, they're brood.
Where's Edge and Christian and Gangrel? If flames popped up and they just started rising from the floor next to them, this episode would be even better.
Puts her face and just spits.
But then do you notice Pat's at the end, and Huell goes over and he's like, how'd this Okie get in here? She rolls with it, though. She likes it.
That was good.
So that's the end of Woolgrowers. Now we're heading over to the world-famous Alley Cat. And Huell seems to really like this place. Let's hear what he has to say about it.
No visit to Bakersfield is worth its salt without a visit down to the world-famous Alley Cat. Now, what is the name of this street?
This is Wall Street Alley.
It's an alley.
It is an alley now. Historically, it was an actual street where businesses were on here. At one time, the fire department's blacksmith shop was down here where Mario's Paco's Tacos is now. At the very end used to be the Bakersfield Californian.
Wow.
This building right next to us here was built in about 1892 or 3.
Well, wait a minute. Enough about the history about this place. Let's talk about your Alley Cat.
Sure.
Your name is
Kenny Reed.
I've never actually met you. I've been in the Alley Cat a number of times.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell us about the Alley Cat.
First things first.
Yeah.
The current status of Wall Street Alley here.
Yes.
It looks a lot different these days.
Yeah. Well, what's the owner's name? I didn't write it down. Kenny Reed. He mentions it at the end of this segment that they're going to start what has since happened. And this is a pretty popular kind of like nightlife spot in downtown Bakersfield. And the Alley Cat it's the oldest bar in town. It's still in existence. It still looks exactly the same. Mm-hmm. It's still quite an interesting place. It's got interesting people in it. I've been in it one time. And it was the second time I ever hung out with Aaron. And it was also the night that your mom, no, Kathleen's mom Kathleen's mom, right?
Uh-huh.
Proclaimed that we would get married on our second date.
I think it was more of a prophecy than it was.
It seems to be.
Proclamation, yeah.
But she was correct, and even mentioned it again, like a couple weeks ago when she was over? Mm-hmm. She's like, I knew it. I knew it when I saw you guys.
Have
you been in here?
Yes. I've been a designated driver about 4 times.
Oh, okay.
And I always got Shirley Temple at the bar.
Yeah. We already talked about your Shirley Temple.
Like,
no,
do you realize how hard it is to get a Shirley Temple? Oh, Roy Rogers, too. It depends on how tough you want to be. I thought it'd be funny. You ask for Shirley Temple.
It's not a super tough guy bar, but
it
depends on who's in there on that day.
It's a wiener drink,
for sure. Yeah,
but you definitely have to order with someone who's getting a drink, or you just won't get served.
Yeah. So we've spent a lot of time in Wall Street Alley.
Yes,
like a lot of time.
Yeah, every time it was an intermission between bands.
Yeah. So Wall Street Alley is just a short little in-betweener street, which Kenny talks about. It used to be a full-fledged street where the Bakersfield Californian building used to be on here before it moved to its big old brick building down the street, all this stuff. But we're on the west end of the street at Alley Cat on the east end.
I Street, yeah.
Yeah. The east end is, I'm going to call it a world-famous musical venue.
I would say so. At least
Jerry's Pizza.
At least in California.
Yeah. Jerry's Pizza was probably the go-to musical venue in town during long prior to our high school days, but during our high school days and beyond.
It was the spot.
The spot.
Well, there was the Boiler Room and Jerry's.
Yeah.
Boiler Room's later, definitely. Jerry's is more renowned.
Boiler Room started during our era. Jerry's had years prior been around, but we saw and played many a show in there.
Oh, yeah. Just sweltering hot in the basement.
I always stuck to that end of the alley, though. I wouldn't come down, because, I was like 15, 16. I didn't have any business being over at this crazy bar down the street.
Yeah, and Mama Roomba's is pretty intimidating, too.
Yeah. That's the new Jamaican place next door to it. But Huell says, I've never met you, Kenny, even though I've been to the Alley Cat numerous times. Now, I know that Huell came to Bakersfield for his show at least maybe like 6 to 7 times, but not all prior to this. So I think he was coming just recreationally. I think there are sleeper cell Huell friends in this town that we just haven't gotten our mitts on yet.
We'll have to find them.
To pull into this room to talk to them into these stupid microphones about what they were doing with Huell in Bakersfield. That's where my head went with that comment.
Sure.
What'd you think about...
Weren't there some other celebrities recently?
Dude, all the time.
That showed up there? Because I heard of Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
His band played.
Just a couple months ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then John C. Reilly was hanging out during they were filming in Tehachapi or something, I think. A movie up there. And John C. Reilly was hanging out in the Alley Cat. Steve Brule himself.
There you go. World famous.
So we go inside the Alley Cat. It looks pretty much exactly the same as I remember from before. Because I just went in there, 3 years ago. And the one thing that I noticed Kenny say that kind of struck me is that he said that the bar is the cultural statement of downtown Bakersfield.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that statement?
It's been there a long time.
Yeah. I guess it depends on which culture you want to be defining downtown Bakersfield. Because as with most downtowns, ours has moments of renaissance and less than so and all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely one of those establishments that would be missed if it was gone.
Right.
But there's a lot more to downtown Bakersfield now than just the Alley Cat. But
then, I mean, think about 2003.
Oh, during this time,
it might have been a more solid statement then.
Yeah,
but
putting it in historical perspective, I guess you're right. Which the Alley Cat's been around since 1940.
Oh,
that's
longer than
no
I thought,
joke.
Yeah.
And Kenny is still the owner to this day, because he was just on the news, like 3 weeks ago, complaining about street closures and the lack of announcing notice. Yeah. So Huell doesn't hang out in the Alley Cat, at least on camera, for very long. He kind of he talks to a patron who's a big fan of his for a minute, and then they talk about this mural, which is cool because it shows a view from the Alley Cat to the Padre before this big, stupid parking structure is there, which, sorry, the parking structure is very handy when you need to park there, but it is kind of an eyesore.
Yeah, for sure.
But either way...
No. Well, it's one of these things where the Padre does use the top, like 3-story.
Yeah, so...
3 stories. It's but I agree with you, because this is a view you can't get.
No.
Ever again.
So it's cool that the mural is there. I think it's still there. I remember seeing it. Either way, Huell kind of wraps it up with Kenny, and then there's a quick little thing where he goes outside and some bikers showed up. And one of them mentioned that they heard he was in town. So obviously, like, word's getting around already. And this is only his first day in town. So if I had known, if I had caught wind of this, I'd been flipping.
There would have been a gang there.
Yeah.
Not just a biker gang.
Yeah. It's funny that that's the gang that shows up. And Huell's into it, and he just says, you never know who you're going to see when you come down to the Alley Cat. And then, rah, just all these guys revving their engines. And then it's on to the next day, day 2 of the road trip. Where are we?
We are at Dewars.
Yes.
The premier ice cream establishment in Bakersfield.
If you sensed a bit of bias in Allan's voice, it's because there are other ice cream establishments in this town, but I guess they don't hold a candle in your mind?
Dude. No. Do they hold a candle in your mind?
No, but I don't want to disparage because it's kind of there's more of a debate. Okay, so there's Rosemary's and there's Dewars, and it's a dividing line stronger than those between political parties. We happen to be Dewars dudes. There
are respectable people though that are Rosemary's fans.
Yeah,
Rosemary fans.
If they're the type who want to eat a sandwich before they have a banana split, that's just fine.
Or the types that do not enjoy marshmallow fluff. Then
I don't understand how you would want to live life that way, but
if you want to, that's okay. And really, it's really, I think the ice cream is better too, but the debate lies more along the lines of like toppings.
Yeah.
Peanuts versus crushed walnuts. Mm-hmm. Marshmallow versus caramel.
I'm not a nut guy, so I don't get nuts, so just leaves more room for marshmallow, in my opinion.
And you could get it on the bottom and the top. Just saying. These are hacks.
Darn right. So Huell mentions that they got a late start this day because they had a little too much fun at the Alley Cat the night before. I thought that was funny. But this is Dewars as I remember it, for sure. Because this is the I Street location. This is not the original location. This is the latest of the, how do I put this? It's the last place for the singular location before they expanded. Because there was one on, it was Chester, right? Yeah. It said it was Chester just down the street, or like the next door to the Hall of Records. And then it moved somewhere else. I forget. And then to this I Street location. And there it's been. And then after that, But even before that, it wasn't even so much the ice cream parlor. It was just a candy store.
Right.
And that's really what this place probably is more known for, like at least nationally, is the chews, the Dewars chews. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think presidents have like ordered the chews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it's kind of a specific candy that I haven't had really anywhere else. At least like specifically how these are made. And that's really like there's this whole segment in the ice cream parlor where we meet those kind of tipsy ladies from the night before.
Yeah.
And because they're doing their kind of high school reunion and they're talking everything up, and then we meet the granddaughter, grandpa, owner family, and then we get to what I thought was the coolest part, which was they go across the street to the kitchen where they make the candy. Mm-hmm. Now, I was looking into the history of the place earlier today, and because I thought it's just not fair. Huell got to go back there. I want to go back there because, I've seen plenty of videos and everything. I've even been on the Frito-Lay tour and all that stuff. I want to eat one of those chews right off.
Dude, I know.
Okay.
I know what you're saying.
All right, here's what I learned. You can just do a tour.
Can you?
I think it's like... let's look it up. Hold on. Okay, we're back. So tours happen Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 10:30 by appointment. Now, why is this not a thing that everyone in this town knows about? Do they not want people to know?
I don't know. I never knew.
Because in the description of what you get to do, tour includes a scoop of ice cream, your choice, strawberry, chocolate, or vanilla, and you get to enjoy one of the taffy chews right off the line. It's in the description. Exactly. That's it. That's all.
You want to take an early lunch?
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Might as well, right? Oh, are they open still to call?
Oh.
Because you got to call for appointments.
We'll figure that out later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, we'll be seeing you. Admission is $5.50 per person. And the tour includes a $1 gift certificate. Good on your next visit. Okay. Either way, Huell seems to be living it up in the back. Because he likes these, like, manufacturing tour kind of deals. Mm-hmm. And did you know that the marshmallow is in the chew? Prior to this?
No, I didn't.
I didn't either. So basically the chew is just like a center of nuts, caramel, any kind of thing that they throw in the middle of it. The outside is this kind of like toffee-ish, not toffee, but like taffy-ish, white, sugary confection. I thought it was just like whipped sugar.
Right.
Totally makes sense that it's sugar. I think he said it was corn glycerin and their famous marshmallow. Dude.
That's why it's so good.
We're going to have to go get some.
What's your favorite?
I know I'm in the minority.
We're going to get some more. We just had some ice cream.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to talk about our time traveling, but we did do our whole intro, as you heard before. My favorite chew is the peppermint.
Okay, it's not mine.
I don't think it's many people's. I love it. I don't know.
Yeah, I like the almond.
I just don't do nuts. Yeah, if I did nuts...
They're almond, pistachio, and then the peanut butter.
I know the nuts is like what most people go for, but if you just got me peppermint and caramel and that's it...
You'd be happy?
Totes good.
All right.
But they also do chocolates, and this is where it gets a little weird. Don't you think?
Okay. It does get weird because this lady has no interest in being interviewed. No. But I read an article.
She also has no windows in this room that they got her holed up in.
Okay. It's true. So Rosie has been making these chocolate-covered nuts from 1951, and she retired in 2007.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was reading an article by a columnist in the Bakersfield Californian, Herb Benham.
Yes.
And he was talking about Rosie, because he was mentioning how Huell could bring anyone. He would find anyone and make them like a star for the day. And even people that you would never suspect. And this was the skill that Huell had. Okay?
You're preaching to the choir here.
No, right, but it'll she is an example in his mind of how he did this. So this lady did not want to be, not that she didn't want to be, but she's used to coming back. She worked there for almost 60 years. Mm-hmm. And she would just go in the back, make her chocolate covered nuts, leave. Mm-hmm. Do that. Huell finds her, treats her like a rock star, as the columnist says, he loves on her.
Yeah.
Okay? And this will be jumping forward just a little bit. But after they leave here, he actually, we don't get to see this, but he goes to Luigi's to eat lunch with Heather and George Dewar, who kind of took him on the tour. And when he gets in the car, he says, "Oh, you know what? I forgot to say goodbye to Rosie." And he went back in,
dude,
and he said bye to her.
That's Huell right there.
And so what he was getting at in the article was, like, he wasn't a faker. Mm-hmm. And so this is like one of the more authentic moments. So that's Rosie.
How does Herb know this?
He met him. Yeah, he met him in 2000. He said 2003, so maybe you got the year wrong, because it was 2002, right?
That's what Chapman's saying.
Yeah, so, I mean, he met him on one of his trips to Bakersfield.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool, because that sounds like the Huell I want to believe existed, and to hear that it like totally is him.
Yeah.
In real life, because that's off camera. Dude, I wish they had gone to Luigi's. Okay, yeah, Allan just pulled up the article. It's from 2013, so it's like he's recollecting this 10-year.
He had just died, so it was more of a.
Oh, it was one of those. Okay, yeah, it's like a week after.
Mm-hmm. But he mentioned that Hauser looked like he had just come out of the ocean after a morning surf, lifted weights for 2 hours, and then taken a bracingly hot shower.
What?
That's
such a good description, because it's kind of true.
So anyway, and that's the whole.
I'm gonna put this in our notes, our description episode.
Yeah,
description
show notes.
Yeah. Anyway, Huell really kind of did help this, because who would have ever known that she was back there dipping all these chocolates, because there's tons of these things at the now 3 locations of Dewars.
Yeah,
because the first person we meet in this segment is the great granddaughter of the original owner, and her brother kind of helped expand Dewars into the bigger place that we know of it as in town today. First starting with, I think it was on Hageman, that second location.
In Callaway, yeah.
Yeah. That one was around for a while. They shut that one down so that they could then go to, because that one, it really did seem like they just went into an already existing building.
Yeah.
But they really wanted to have their own standalone, unique place.
Well, I should mention before you leave that building, well, Matt worked there, number one. Which is
really?
An insider, yeah.
I didn't know that.
That was when I hit my rock bottom, and I ordered just a bowl of Marshmallow Whip.
I've heard this story, and I think of it as your top, like your
I felt like a barbarian.
Well, your go-to move, which, should we say this? This is like...
No, this is insider stuff. We got to keep it off the air.
Oh, dude. Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep it off.
Okay. There's some... You just got to know. Everyone probably has their things that you do at Dewars. But let's just say they'll be generous if you're nice.
Yes. It's like, but you don't have to persuade them in any way.
Oh.
You know, you go to Chipotle, mm-hmm. and you're like, hey, can I get a half steak?
Yeah.
And then they scoop it, and they're so thrown off by it. It's half. They give you more than half.
Yeah.
And you say, you know what? Just make the other half steak too. Stuff like that.
Oh, man. Either way, they built their Callaway location, which is, people should still go to the original location to get that feel of it.
But you will hit your knees.
For sure. It's very small. It's old-fashioned. It's still much like you see it in the episode here. They painted it and everything, but the Callaway location is very comfortable.
It's very comfy, yeah.
I like it.
And then the Buena Vista and Ming location
With the drive-through.
with the drive-through.
You know, when I first heard that, I was like, drive-through ice cream.
Dude, it is packed like In-N-Outs.
All the
drive-through
time. Yeah.
all the time. It's crazy. So if anyone's familiar with In-N-Out, that's the wait.
Yeah.
If that at least
Worth it.
is yeah. It's an example of the demand for ice cream in town.
Mm-hmm. So that's definitely one of the more famous things that Bakersfield has to offer, but Huell had to one-up himself for the outro. He got down to the base of Bakersfield's base line kind of cultural claim to fame.
Yeah.
Buck freaking Owens. Now, I could talk for hours about the Bakersfield sound, the country music historical legacy that our town has, and how even though it's very well known amongst like older country music fans, I don't think many people realize how much modern day country music owes to this Western style that started in the honky tonks of Bakersfield and Oildale. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to leave it at that because I'll just go too far into it. But Buck Owens, even though he became kind of like this larger than life, almost cartoonish character because of Hee Haw and his association with, Dwight Yoakam and Merle Haggard and all that stuff, which, of course, Merle, he's a Bakersfield boy, too. Mm-hmm. He still was like a gritty country singer from Bakersfield. And then he just happened to become hugely famous, immensely rich, by one of the biggest radio stations in California, or started it. He didn't even buy it. He started it. He saved a local landmark, which I got to say this. I don't know did you catch this about the motor inn that he mentioned?
About what you can do on it, or just about the motor inn itself?
The Bakersfield Inn itself. Okay. So Buck Owens is known for many things, one of which was saving the Bakersfield sign. There's a Bakersfield sign, you've probably seen it. It's a large overpass that used to span between a large pillar and the Bakersfield Inn on Union Avenue.
Which it was there because Union Avenue used to be 99. The 99.
Yeah. And it was it still is a huge building. The building itself is still there. I think it's like a nonprofit assistance facility now. Mm-hmm. But the sign is long gone. And Buck, as you hear in this interview with Huell, helped save and renovate the sign itself, which is now over by where Huell and Buck were.
Select Avenue.
Select Avenue, right off of Buck Owens Boulevard.
Which that's a whole thing in itself because it used to be Pierce Road. Okay. Yeah. We won't get into that, though.
But Huell mentions that the Bakersfield Inn, where the sign originally was supposedly the first motor hotel.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Buck. Come on, dude. We got enough going for us. You don't need to be lying to the people. Huell must have been sitting there and being like, dude, you ever watch my shows? That was episode 2. You know that it's the Motor Hotel Inn in San Luis Obispo.
When you see how polite Huell is.
Yeah. He's real smitten with Buck, didn't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, he's from the South.
What do you think about Buck and the sign, though?
Nashville West over here, right?
Yeah, true. But Buck and the sign, like how he thought about it, what do you think?
I think that he wished he got more assistance.
Maybe so.
Transporting it to Select Avenue.
He said something along the lines of, you'd be surprised how much it costs to be a hero around here.
And he was probably disappointed. I mean, it kind of looks like how, well, it did in its heyday. Uh-huh. But he wanted it so you can walk through it. Yeah. Like you used to be able to across Union. And this, you can't. So.
Which, whatever. It's still cool.
It is cool.
It looks way better than it did before, because during our years of being, cognizant of it, it was a little worse for the wear.
Didn't you own a piece of this?
I personally didn't. I did hold it. My stepdad worked for a concrete cutting company at the time who was contracted to do the cutting of the base of it. And all the contractors had first dibs on getting a piece of the original sign. So after that job, he comes home with this little, I don't know, like 4x4 square piece of yellow metal. And as soon as he brought it in, I knew exactly what it was. Because he didn't tell us beforehand. He just shows up with this thing. I was like, did you get a piece of the sign? He's like, sure did. Where is that piece of sign now? I don't know. I think it got lost during a move, which is a darn shame, if you ask me.
Yeah, seriously.
But either way, Buck saved the sign. It's not even a little bit of the old sign in there, I don't think. I think it's just a new sign. But
It's in the spirit.
What he did do is he built, would you call the Crystal Palace a shrine to himself?
Well, I don't want to say it isn't.
Yeah. I mean, he
We'll
says...
just say maybe.
Yeah. I mean, he says this was his dream when he was playing the little honky-tonks in Oildale, that he wanted to build a venue where people could come and have an expensive steak and listen to live music every day of the week. And he did it. I mean, if you want to describe what the Crystal Palace is like.
Well, we'll just say, I mean, it's won awards.
Yeah, many.
And not any small awards either. It was the Academy of Country Music. They called it the Country Nightclub of the Year in 1997, in 2004, and in 2006.
So this is a world-renowned place.
Mm-hmm. Have you been here?
I have. One time.
What did you go for?
I saw the LA punk band X there. Who you think, punk band at a country honky-tonk. But X kind of has somewhat of a country influence. And John Doe, the singer, one of the singers, lived in Bakersfield at the time.
You know, that's funny because I know Dwight Yoakam. He did a Bakersfield Sound Week, I think, on Sirius XM, and he was mentioning bands that were influenced by the Bakersfield sound, and he mentioned X.
Once you hear that, once you think of that, you start hearing the Billy Zoom guitar lines less of like a rockabilly sound and more of that. And then like DJ Bonebreak, the way he would play drums in that kind of just like 1-2 way instead of a 4-4, it's like they're just like a honky band, but singing about like heroin and stuff. But yeah, that was the one time I went there. Ran into Randy Beeman there.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Bakersfield, California, historian extraordinaire,
as well as my future at that time, former at this time roommates Adam and Henry. You have been there too.
Yes, I've actually seen Buck play.
See, I didn't. I never did. Huge regret.
My mom, she made it. Birthdays were a big deal. So for my dad's birthday, which this was a long time ago, I wasn't driving yet, so a while ago, we were eating dinner on the second floor, whatever you want to call that.
Balcony?
The balcony, yeah. And my mom was a sneaky one. She's very sneaky. She slid, which I'm still wondering what was on the napkin, but I'll just tell you, she slid something to the waitress.
Yeah.
About 15 minutes later, Buck takes a break, and he says, "You know what? We got some birthdays around here." He's all, "Jimmy Wheeler, happy birthday!" And my dad just, ribs on his face, just looks up. So yeah, that was the whole thing. And then my mom won tickets on KUZZ to see Dwight Yoakam, and I went with her.
Dang.
Yeah.
So you saw the true royalty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Buck played here almost every weekend, and I never went once, like a dummy.
But at least we do know a drummer for the Buckaroos currently.
Yeah, and there's the little bit at the end, which did you notice if it's him?
No, I don't think it's him.
It doesn't look like it. But yeah, he was a Buckaroo for a while. Your former coworker, right?
Oh, he still does it. He's still a drummer.
No, but he's your former coworker.
Oh, former coworker. I did former buckaroo.
No. Current buckaroo, former coworker, friend of yours.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. What's his name?
Dave.
That's right. Okay. Shout out to Dave. You told me something that they kind of sort of allude to in the interview once they get inside and you see the car behind the bar. That this car was lowered in from a crane and is like an integral piece of the building's
like they
construction.
So the person who I heard it from, who's friends in construction, they laid an I-beam. Like, yeah, it's fully like reinforced behind the Cadillac. Those cars weigh like 4,000 or 5,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So
Buck says it's in front of the bar behind the cold storage. So I guess there's a refrigerator behind it.
Yeah, so it's not going anywhere.
So Buck's kind of given the lowdown on the Crystal Palace, and Huell's just eating it up. And they start to get up to like the second floor area, and Buck says the line of the segment, I think. He said, well, we get emails. We're on the internet. With no context. Like, there's no reason why he's saying that, but he does. Just want you to know that in 2002, Buck Owens was on the internet and getting emails.
There is a final, like, funny bit we could talk about. So, Bonnie Owens.
Yeah.
And Buck Owens.
You told me this, last week when we were talking about this show. I didn't even know this.
Yeah, so they had a kid.
Yeah.
Buddy Owens.
Mm-hmm. Bonnie, Buck, Buddy. Okay.
Bonnie and Buck split.
Mm-hmm.
And who does Bonnie marry? None other than
Merle Haggard.
Merle Haggard. Okay, so Buddy Owens's dad and stepdad are the kings of, well, it can be two kings, but of Bakersfield Sound.
They're the rival kings.
Yeah.
Because I think they both deserve crowns of their own for the parts they played in the country music legacy of Bakersfield.
It's hard to tell. They both have streets named after them now. So
Merle's childhood home is at the Kern County Museum now, which is a little tie-in to earlier segment. Buck has his shrine to himself. Huell's got plenty of shrines to him too, down in Chapman and all over the place.
That tiny one in your house. You have candles lit.
It's not a vigil. I do have some Huell memorabilia, but we won't get into how crazy I get with that. If you have the scoop on any cool Huell stuff, though, do send it our way. Maybe not the actual artifacts, but just pictures or something. I want to see it. Maybe I'll make you an offer. But there's no one in the Crystal Palace during this interview. It's just Huell, Buck, Cameron on camera, and that's it. But someone obviously is serving some drinks, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Because Buck has a styrofoam cup he's walking around with that. I don't think that thing had root beer in it.
I don't think so.
Because the end of this segment, Huell's just trying to do his outro, and Buck's just, Huell, yep, who, trying to talk at him the whole time, and finally gets in. You tell him Huell Hauser sent you. And Huell is, did you see the smile on his face?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. He could not be happier. He throws a thumbs up. And then, dude, we see the man himself.
Just playing the song itself.
Yep. The song that made Buck probably more famous than anything.
Streets of Bakersfield.
And it's cool because I'm going to play this as our outro because it's a live version. So there's no copyright on this bad boy. He played this song every night for 5,000 nights in town. It's all good. You're going to hear it. You're going to hear this specific version that looks like it was played that same night. And that's going to end our wild and woolly road trip through Bakersfield.
Oh, man.
We went everywhere.
We did. And I'm thinking we need to make another road trip back to Dewars.
You think?
Yeah. You got 3 minutes?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I'm glad you heard this. This was really fun for us. As you can tell, we really like our town. We hope that you watch this episode. Go to the description. Hit the video. It's so much fun. And we're starting a new season next week.
We are? Season 3?
Yep.
I'll listen
so
to
season 3 starts next week. But for now, we hope you come along with us next time as we continue our search for
Huell's Gold.
There's 1,000 miles of thumbing. I've worn blisters on my heels, trying to find me something better on the streets of Bakersfield. You know, as of today, I guess this is the only place in town that's left that has live music 5-6 nights a week.
Well, you pack them in here, not only locals, but people from literally all over the world.
Oh, really, they come from everywhere. We get emails, you know, we're on the internet.